This evening I'm interviewing Peter Davis, a long-term member of the Cooma Rotary Club who's been involved in some pretty amazing projects, particularly his engagement with communities in New Guinea over time. And tonight I just want to talk to him about those sorts of things. First of all, Pete, what was your initial involvement with Rotary? How did you find out about Rotary?
Well, I'd only been in Rotary for 2 weeks. In fact, in the intervening 2 weeks, I've been to New Guinea doing a Kokoda trek and one of my very early trips. And I came across a village that didn't have any water or drinkable water. Their river was polluted. And I went to my second Rotary meeting, having just come back from New Guinea, was invited as an ordinary member to a board meeting. And I thought, oh, well, I'm an ordinary member now, I'll turn up. So I did. And the president asked me, did I have anything to, any questions? And I said, yeah, I want to do an international aid project. Whereupon I was almost laughed out of the room, but I batted on and ended up getting 2 huge grants, one from Rotary International, one from the Australian High Commission in PNG, and never looked back from there, really.
So when you say they had no water, how was water brought? The river was polluted. So what drinking water and that sort of thing? How did they manage for that?
Well, that's what they had to drink. Yeah.
Right.
So the women were carrying water more than a kilometre in 20-litre drums from a mountain stream. And when I saw that and compared it to what I do on my farm with moving water around, I thought I can fix this. And so I set about doing just that.
Right. So I guess the social impact of having to carry water and that sort of thing in terms of village time and that sort of thing would have been huge, quite apart from anything else.
Well, we didn't realise it at the time, but it soon became apparent that because the women were carrying water, they weren't able to teach their kids. And so that was having a direct impact on the children's education. And the men had to go and work in the nearby sawmill, or it was about 20 kilometres away actually, to make some money because they were struggling to grow their gardens. So it had a huge impact actually. Yeah, quite a big knock-on effect.
Must have done indeed. I remember those days in Rotary, Peter, and I remember you being something of a firebrand. But we very quickly learned that when Pete set his mind to something, it happened. You didn't let much escape from you, which was fantastic. So the money came from grants. How, quite specifically, was the Cooma Rotary Club involved in the project in terms of?
Well, Rotary's got a wonderful system for managing things exactly like this. One of the great strengths of Rotary is that if anybody comes up with an idea, it doesn't matter how silly it is, if they've got the get up and go to make it happen, Rotary will support it. And so Rotary provided all the systems that I needed. So they managed the finances, like they banked the money and did all the receipting and all that sort of stuff. And the insurance aspects and international travel and all that sort of stuff was all handled through the very experienced Rotary system. So I can't speak highly enough of the Rotary backing to make it work.
And how did you had a party of fellows go over with you, party of people from Cooma go with you to achieve this final project? Yeah. So who were they?
So that was Steve Shervington, Howard Brown and Les Sutcliffe. And Les and Steve had been all over the world in their previous careers. And as part of that expedition, we went to Port Moresby Hospital, and I'll never forget the look on those very experienced fellows' faces when we went into the emergency department, and I use that term loosely, and it was just like something out of a horror movie. It was just ghastly. It was beyond third world, terrible.
And so that first project, which was to install a water tank, is that right?
No, it was actually a pipe, a 1-inch poly pipe. Now that sounds pretty simple, but it took nearly 2 years and more than 200 emails to get it to happen. It was a huge amount of work. And compare that to what I do on my farm, I can lay 1.5 kilometres of this same pipe, and that was about the length of the pipe that we used, in about 4 hours. And when you consider the effort it took to find the pipe, buy the pipe, transport the pipe, carry it down a mountainside with the villagers carrying it on their heads, and then clear a track through the thick jungle to lay the pipe, and then get the airlocks out of it and teach the villagers how to maintain it. It was a big job.
Indeed, it must have been. And it must have felt wonderful. You were there when the water first came through?
Absolutely. So I've actually done 9 water projects altogether with Rotary, and at each one when we get cold, clean water running out the tap in the village, I love to have a drink of it. It just tastes so good.
It must do. It must do after all of that. Pete, a slight move on. Clearly, the visit to the hospital, that was gave birth to another project, didn't it?
Well, I always try to maximise what we do in PNG. So I'm very lucky in that I'm in a position where I get paid to go to work up there as a trek load on the Kokoda track. So I always tried to leverage that good fortune with returning some benefits to PNG. And so I'd take medical supplies up, or wheelchairs or crutches. And Steve Sherman from Cooma Hospital, where he worked at that time, was instrumental in organising that, the supply of those things. And I'd take them up on the aeroplane with the trekkers or my Rotarians, and we'd take them to the hospitals or the villages as applicable.
So yeah, this was beds and so on that the hospital no longer needed in Cooma, but I guess they were almost state of the art for New Guinea.
Things as simple as crutches were just vital to people hopping around with broken legs or ulcers or whatever terrible things that have go on there. Yeah.
And so other projects that the Cooma Rotary Club was involved in involved bicycles and sewing machines and that sort of thing. I think that was to do with, was that Chris Adams who was involved in that?
Yes, I'd actually moved to Orange for 3 years at that time, so I wasn't involved in that project. But prior to that, we built a relationship with the Kemabolo village where we built a 218,000 litre water tank, and that collected water off a bunch of school buildings with big pipes. And we had a heap of Cooma Rotarians came and did the work with that. There were lots of challenges with that project. It was a huge tank. But anyway, good relationships were built with that village, and then Chris and his team of Cooma Rotarians went back up there later and provided bicycles and sewing machines and computers on another trip as well. And then I went back again after that to do some maintenance on the water supply. So I've maintained that relationship with that village. That's
been ongoing. The Chris Adams story and the sewing machines and so on is for another interview because he's on my list. But you're my first interviewee. So Peter, thank you very much for your contribution to Rotary over a great period of time, to PNG obviously, and to this little project of recording some special people's activities in Rotary. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Alison.
Bye-bye.
Bye.